I have apparently turned into someone who enjoys bringing folks along on my adventures, and I think it's just because I've recently gotten hung up on that whole idea of walks being this weird thing. So here we are getting started. Warten. Game. Chai. We're in my favorite part of the city, Los Dinamos. I try to go out to a place like this, at least on the weekend. I used to live in places like this, so all our outings would look like this, with the dogs having all the freedom in the world. But unfortunately I don't. I now live in a very dense city in an urban neighborhood, so our normal daily outings is when we head out, we're in urban places. The dogs are off leash in the city too. They're off leash pretty much everywhere and all the time. But I do feel like, just like myself, they enjoy this kind of place a lot more than the city places. Also, the sound that you can hear behind me is a river. It's wet here because it has been raining, which is unusual for January. That's climate change for you. Let's just show you a little bit of the pups. We'll meet other dogs occasionally, mountain bikers, sometimes cattle, sometimes goats, sheep, horses or horseback riders. And of course, there's squirrels to chase. Here's a bunch of people who are also enjoying the green space. The dogs, once they're finished sniffing, they'll come and catch up with me. Good girlie. They have no interest in people, since they see people all the time, pretty much non-stop every day in the city. And the same goes for dogs. And other dogs usually feel pretty much the same way. Just coexisting in a space that is perceived to be a public space for humans and dogs. As you can see, I haven't used a single... Go have fun. I haven't used a single cue so far for the dogs, except for having them wait in the car and go out in a controlled manner, because I was parking at the street. So I'm letting one after the other out on cue, which is, in this scenario, their names. And the reason for that is that in the city, automatically, I've got to require a lot of control. Because there are cars, streets, cats we can occasionally chase on cue when it's safe for the cat. But we can't actually kill cats. So in the city, there are all these rules that my dogs have to follow in order to be able to have that off-leash freedom. So when we're out here, that's their time to be their crazy selves. and really do anything they want. There are no cars that could run them over, and the only thing I might do, if necessary, is call them away or ask them to leave it if we pass cattle or horses and they don't default to leaving that. But otherwise, I just let my dogs be dogs. I don't mind how far they go. I don't mind if I can't always see them out here, because they'll come back. They know how to find me, and they want to be out here with me, just like I want to be out there with them. Oh, another opportunity where I might use a cue is these people barbecuing here. So if one of my dogs thought, maybe I can snatch a bite, I would ask them not to. But otherwise, if they want to roll in horse poop, or if they want to eat some squirrel carcass they find, I'll let them do any of that. This is their time to just be dogs. They don't bother anyone. So there's no reason to restrict their freedom. Something else to roll in. Whoops. Just like me, I feel like my dogs just look so happy when they're out here. And I want them to have that. One day I'll live in a place, again, where I can have these kinds of walks every day without having to drive. I grew up like this, and I used to live like this, but not since we've moved to Mexico City, so. But I promised Game that before the end of her life, she would live in this kind of world again. So we're not gonna stay in the city forever, just for a while. I hope you can hear me over the sound of the stream. Dogs will go in and out to have a drink, to have fun in the water. Probably less so now because it's not super hot. It's the perfect weather, I guess, around 20 degrees Celsius. And yeah, I let my dogs swim, I let my dogs jump on rocks. If they fall into the river, I'm confident they will find their way out again. Got some other dogs there. Hi, Game! Good girlie. Just briefly called Game here, because sometimes when another dog runs away from her, she can be a little bit of a bully, and I just want to make sure that doesn't happen. So that was my first recall that I used on this entire walk, and we have been walking for like 15 minutes now. I will soon be in a place where there are less people and more squirrels to chase, and in those places they will potentially go out of sight a little bit, chasing after something. We'll walk on the farming trails where they might find human poop and eat it, because that's what dogs do. And I don't care, because I deworm them on a regular basis, so let dogs be dogs. Hey, girlie. Our game is chasing after Chai. You got it. If it gets too much for Chai, I will slow the game down. Alright, langsam, mi amor. Good girlie. And Chai just knows to come up to me if she needs protected. Oh, what do we have here? That's what I meant with games sometimes wanting to chase after other dogs when they run away. It also goes for Chai. Like she does it, it's a game, but a strange dog may not understand that. We're now on the side of the stream where there are less people. It's just like kids in the stream playing. For some reason, oranges and apples. You can see Game is gonna have a drink there, but she won't go up to the kids. Whoops. She'll just follow me when she's done. Whoop. I'm sliding down this mountain. That's what happens. Chai is asking Game to play again. Bouncing around. Yeah, and in my ideal world, both me and dogs would have this kind of environment at our disposal every day without needing to get into a car. That's how I spent the first 17 years of my life before I moved to Vienna to study, and then that's how I spent my time in Guatemala too. Those 3 years as an adult, and eventually we'll go back to that. To living in the middle of nowhere, having lots of fun. Just being ourselves. What did you find, Chai? Let's go check it out. Chai's digging up there. So they're digging, maybe eating something, maybe rolling in the dirt. The only reason for me to care about a dog eating something they would find in these woods is if they had really extreme stomach sensitivities. My dogs don't. If they get something doesn't agree with them, they'll have, like, the worst that'll happen is diarrhea for a day or two, and then we're back to normal. And to me, it seems that's totally worth it. You'll also see that sometimes one of the dogs is ahead of me and takes a different fork in the road, and I don't have to call them, I'll just keep walking. And then they'll figure out how to find me again. Which is a fun game for them, and for me. Isn't it beautiful? Yay, you're so good. To have dogs who want to be with you, you don't have to tell them to, it's just what they do. And I assume if I talk about this publicly to people who don't know me, you might wonder, how do I get to this point? When do I allow a new puppy this kind of freedom? And the answer is, again, I hope you can hear me over the sound of the stream. As soon as a puppy, like if it's a puppy especially, they will be, like from the very beginning, off-leash more often than on-leash. Because puppies, they have it built in that they don't want to lose you, right? Puppies know that they're small and vulnerable, so they'll follow you and make sure not to go too far. And then I can reinforce this and praise them, or simply play with them, give them verbal feedback. At that point, that's all they need, because they will need me as an anchor of safety. And once they got older, they will get bolder. So by the time they are adolescents, I have usually already trained recall. And a radius. And being off leash is nothing new and exciting, it's just their normal. In this situation, with many dogs and with most pet dogs who don't have insane drives for freedom, you can just continue having them off leash. With my kinds of dogs who can go for hours, they're worky dogs. So with those dogs, depending on the individual, there may be a time where they... Hi there, where did you come from? Did you find a different route? Good girlie. So there may be a time where they test the limits, so to speak, and do more of their own thing, have larger radii, or whatever the plural of radius is, or where they're more likely to get into trouble, because basically like human teenagers. And if that happens, I may put them on a long line just for, like, sometimes that takes a week, sometimes that takes 2 weeks, in environments where they could get themselves into trouble. I will not take away their freedom entirely, because the less freedom there is, the more need for freedom builds up. So, for example, let's say I had a young dog who, let's say I have a young dog. I've raised them to be not afraid of the world. They also have the genetics to be not afraid of the world, because there is only so much you can do in your puppy raising if you don't have the genetics to back it up. So let's say I have this young dog. They're not afraid of people, and they're at this age where they find kids like the ones we saw on the other side of the river super exciting, and they want to run up to them and jump up on them. So in that situation, because I don't want them to practice that behavior, obviously, I wouldn't allow it. Like, I would have them on a leash or a long line in the presence of kids like this. But for the most part, I would just take hikes, either on days where there are no kids at the river, at times where there are no kids at the river, or in places where there are no kids. So they would continue having this freedom, and once they got a little older, we could just go back to the usual routes, even if those include kids. The reason that you see so many people here is because it's the weekend. If we were Like if this was a weekday, it's Saturday today. If this was a weekday, it would be super quiet and we would hardly run into anyone. Yeah, I can hear music because up there, you can't see it, but there's that little town. And these paths that we're on are not the ones that people who come here for the weekend with their families would usually take. Those are routes that people take with livestock or in order to carry and deliver stuff they're carrying. So the nice thing is that there's less of that on the weekends, and we pretty much have these spaces to ourselves and to the squirrels. Nothing beats a good squirrel hunt, of course. Another question that's gonna come up is, it's like I only realize these questions will come up because I hear people ask them, not because they're natural to me, because to me this is the perfectly normal thing, and I used to think that that's what everyone does with their dogs. Baseline shit, right? I used to think this is the reason you get a dog is because you like doing these kinds of things with dogs. And only recently did I realize that that was not in fact the case. Now we found a squirrel or something to chase up in the woods. Did he get away? No. Anyway, so one question people would ask for sure is, am I not afraid to lose my dogs? The answer is no, I'm not afraid to lose my dogs, because why would I be afraid to lose my dogs? My dogs don't want to lose me, which is why I don't have to worry. They have great noses. They always find me. Dogs are smart. So it is easier for them to find me, or it would be easier for them to find me than the other way around, if that ever was a concern. But in general, so I'm not concerned about this. Especially not, of course, with dogs like these, who are highly biddable, highly cooperative. Their radius train and their radius is naturally smaller than the radius of, let's say, some Nordic breed or some highly independent hunting breed might be. Also, my dogs usually wear some sort of ID tag or a tracker. I just forgot to put on their collars this morning. But it doesn't matter, I've never needed that, right? So that's just like an airbag in your car. Don't expect to need that. I used to have a dog who would, on occasion, do things, like would on occasion take off and not get lost, but like do his own thing. That was my teenage dachshund. Teenage dachshund as in I was a teenager when I had him, and I didn't really know how to train him. I found him when he was estimated to be 3 years old in the streets, and then we looked for the owner. We didn't find the owner, and we ended up, so I ended up keeping him. And so this dog would, when off leash in the forest, take off. He always knew how to find his way back home, and since I lived somewhere I could just walk everywhere, I would take my really long walks and he would take his really long walks, and parts of those really long walks we would take together, and other parts not so much. But so he would like do his thing, come back, find me, go off and do his thing again. Chai found bones, and Game would like those bones, so we're playing. Or is it just a stick? In any case, we're playing with it. It's a stick, you guys. Or is it something else? No, it is a stick. You're eating that stick? It must be a very tasty stick. Because we usually don't eat sticks. You can hear these people over there have a dog who's barking. You can see that my dogs don't give a shit. And I honestly believe, well, let me end this video and start another one. I just mentioned that we saw a dog, and my dogs, as always, didn't give a shit. And that dog was on leash. My dogs are off leash. My dogs can tell perfectly well the difference between an on leash and off leash dog, or between a dog that's behind a fence versus a dog that's free. And if a dog came charging at them without a fence or without a leash, their response will be very different than if that other dog is behind a fence or on a leash. And so they know that the dog on the leash or behind the fence can't get to them either way, so they don't have to give a shit. But if the dog was free, well, then they would have a conversation with that dog. Chai would end up deferring to the dog, and Game would require the dog be polite. And while there is 100% a genetic factor, hi guys, to that whole element of how do your dogs respond to or perceive other dogs, there's for sure also an element of life experience to that. And I'm going to talk about the life experience element. So you definitely get dogs who want to kill other dogs. I have lived with a dog like that, and behaviorally euthanized her in the end. So, and I've raised that dog just the same way as I'm raising all my other dogs. So, for sure. So we can't blame the owner for their dog not being quote unquote perfect, right? But those dogs that are really, really kind of psycho in a way, are very, very, very rare. They are the like 1 in, I don't know, a million or 1 in 100,000, maybe 1 in 100,000 dogs, I believe. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know them, honestly, but I very rarely come across that dog. I have come across it once, and then there was another dog where I was like, maybe you fall into that category, but I didn't work with this other dog. So I can't tell for sure. And I've worked with lots of dogs. So I think a lot of this a big part of the reason that my dogs are able to easily dismiss strangers as well as strange dogs is that they very, very rarely wear a leash, and that's independent of the environment we're in. Dogs who are off leash have choices. They have an easy way to say, okay, I'm not like entirely comfortable with this, I'm just gonna walk the other way. And dogs who are on a leash do not have that same, especially the kind of leashes that are typical, the 6-foot leash, right? That's a very short leash. I would not be able to make smart decisions if I was on a 6-foot leash, because it really limits what you can do as a person or as a dog. While if you're off leash, there are all these options you have. You can retreat, you can come closer, you can curve around, you can stay where you are and assess the situation. While if you're on a leash, you're at your human's mercy. And in the culture of dogs that I see in the global north, these short leashes are very common, and so are behavior problems. So I wonder if there's a connection between my dogs, by the time they do walk in it, because of course there are contexts, like we can't go into the vet's office off leash, for example. So they do learn to walk on a leash, but their social interactions will, the foundation of that will be off leash. And so most of their social interactions initially, especially when I have a puppy, will be off leash. I don't see any reason why I would put a leashed puppy in a social situation, whether it involves humans or dogs. Only once they're older, confident, and believe in their own agency to just walk away from a conflict, because in the end, it is evolutionarily smart to walk away from a conflict rather than engage in it, right? And in a recent discussion, I was someone convinced me that that is not necessarily the case for dogs that have been bred to be game dogs, but the majority of pets in a majority of households will, in the global north, will not have that kind of genetic makeup. So if you give them an opportunity to grow and freely explore the social spaces they're expected to inhabit as adults without restricting their movement and all their access to other dogs and other people, I personally believe there's a good chance that if the genetics are sound, that so will be dog. By the time I'm walking them through a busy airport, like Game is my service dog, for example, and I think Chai, even though I hadn't planned on this, but she's gonna follow in her footsteps because she's just turning out to be such a good dog. So yes, at an airport, I can't have my dog off leash, so they'll be on leash, and it won't be a problem for them because they've already learned not to worry about dogs and people. And the reason they were able to learn that easily is that they were able to learn these things off leash rather than braaf is me, confined to a very short leash. So that's what I think. And what I think today, whoever knows me knows that I like to keep learning, and I'm open to my mind changing or people changing my mind on that. So maybe if you ask me in a year, actually for sure, if you ask me in a year, my answer will at least have changed somewhat, because every day that I'm alive interacting with humans and dogs, I learn something new. And sometimes it changes what I used to believe is true. I think that's a good thing. Stay open-minded and look for things to disprove rather than things to prove your current point of view. And surround yourself with people who think differently, not only with people who think exactly the same way that you do. That's where the biggest growth opportunities lie. I found something tasty to eat. I think it's a fruit, some sort of apple. You're very lucky. Yes, you are. Very lucky. We're now on the other side of the river, and I pulled out my camera real quick to show you what happens when we run into people, which is just more likely on this side. Haven't met that many people yet, but I bet we're about to. Maybe I'll turn off my camera until there actually is a person. Oh, finally, there's someone up there. Up ahead that we're about to meet. Oh, and there's cattle too. Person to the left, cattle to the right. Braaf is medi. I know, that's very interesting. We're not gonna eat the cow. I know, we're intrigued. And there are people picnicking over there in the field. Very good. We didn't need any cues to pass the picnickers or the cow. That's what I'm talking about. I just love outings like this because there are just so many interesting things, both for me and for the dogs. I would usually go to the right, but I'm gonna go to the left because this means meeting another person. It's just so much more interesting out here than in the city. So, the little dog gave a bark, the person used their stick to stop Chai from showing too much interest. Chai was like, alright. That's just the norm here. Human and dogs communicating in the most natural ways. And everyone would protect their own dog from a bigger dog. And also not worry about it, because everyone feels like it's very normal for dogs to be off leash. Yeah, and I like it better to come across things like cattle, other off-leash dogs, beautiful plants, rivers that I can make my way across, mountains or rocks that I can climb. I love free climbing. And that just doesn't happen on our urban walks. Like, it's always interesting and fun to walk in Mexico City. But it's different out here, simply because of the things that I am most interested in and I find most enjoyable and relaxing. And I do feel like the dogs enjoy it out here more than in the city as well, but I may be projecting, of course. It's hard to say. You never know with these things because we can't ask non-human animals what they think. German Shepherd to the left with the cyclists. My dogs have already moved on. And this one is just sniffing where they used to sniff. Plus, probably tired from running with the bikes. We're about to encounter another set of people, so keep recording and then I'll end this video. Oh, well, we won't encounter them because they didn't take the bridge. My dogs are not interested in running up to random strangers or random people because their life is filled with social interactions. Meaning that that's nothing special. What did we find here? That's interesting. Ooh, what is that? Wow, that's amazing. Oh, get it. What is that? Wow. Oh, nice find. Nice find. So good. Oh, kill it. Kill that bunny. You're so good. Yes, you're so good. Look at that. The best dog toys. Apparently found in the middle of the forest. Nice. You dig in. It was already pretty dirty, so I don't think a kid left it here and is going to miss it. So they get to destroy it and have fun with it. It's so good. He is so good. Nice job. You guys show it. Yes. Kill and dissect is the name of the game. Yeah, you're a very good girl. I bet Game is gonna bring it with her when she comes running. Let's see if she does. That is fun to dissect. Yeah, that's it. There are people by the river. But the dogs don't care. So much joy. I could intersect myself into that play, but I'm having fun videoing them, so I'm not participating for now. Make it snow. And yes, we get to take this all the way to the car if we want to. And see how long it stays interesting. You can tell that it is, of course, more interesting to the male than to the border collie. Because males love to bite stuff. Dog down there. Sige, isang kagotche na sa naman. I just had to let these people know that yes, it's a teddy bear-ish thing. It's not an animal that my dogs are mauling here. I mean, best outing ever. Roll some horse shit at first, run and play. Get to jump into the water. See a cow. Chase a squirrel. Say hi to a dog or two. And then find this amazing treasure. Oh, of course, and also find a tasty stick and a tasty apple, like, or something fruit. You're so good. You are so good. Yes, you gotta be proud of yourself, mi amor. That's it. Yo. There's some sort of party going on over there with kids. There's food, so I might have to ask, might eat anything dog chai to not eat the food. Leave it. That's right. There's a dog up there. Looks like a free roamer begging for food. Other dogs barking somewhere in the distance. This is a popular Sunday destination where people will do barbecues. Today it's Saturday, so there's a little less going on. But I bet they find leftovers around here. Oh, there's horseback riders up there, all the way up in the street. Chai noticed them and dismissed them. I'm not sure Gabe noticed them at all. So many interesting stimuli everywhere. Yeah, and as I'm nearing the end of our walk, yeah, I just wanted to say that I think when freedom is the norm, which is not a big deal, most dogs will do perfectly fine with it. On the other hand, if you raise your dog for years and years without ever taking off the leash and then you suddenly do, it's like the greatest thing that has ever happened to them. And they may already connect you to the lack of freedom, right? You may already be someone who holds them back on a leash from all the things they would like to do rather than their adventure buddy. So in that case, you have to build a foundation of trust first. It's always easiest to start with a puppy and just let them grow into the companion you want them to be.